My name is Jonas Haertle. I'm the head of the UN Principles for Responsible Management Education, an initiative that connects over 700 business schools in 85 countries with the core issue of the UN, sustainable development. So basically, we encourage and engage business schools around the world in integrating sustainable development values and thinking into the curriculum, research, and in partnering with other stakeholders outside of business schools. Well, I officially also work for the UN, and the UN launched in 2015 the Sustainable Development Goals. And it was very heartening to see that many business schools in the audience have already picked up the call by the United Nations to endorse and to help achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by integrating them into the curriculum and research. So my main point was to say that PRIME as a network can help business schools on that trajectory, and by that business schools can answer the call by many, many students, specifically the current millennial generation that is seeking purpose in the way they want to work once they graduate. So the Sustainable Development Goals, as we want to say, are a guiding framework that can help business schools and their students to identify the main challenges, and on the flip side, say how business, through its products and services, can help find solutions to achieve sustainable development. Well, you just have to look into every morning's newspaper to see that the planet is at risk right now. We have, unfortunately, projection that we are not in line with the safe space when it comes, for example, to climate change targets. So we are in urgent need of turning around, and the economy and the private sector has a key role to play. I think that business education can be an enabler to finding the solutions to bring us back into a safe operating place for the planet. And then secondly, social issues, poverty, inequality, gender equality, just as some of those issues are key for many, many individuals in societies around the world. So how can business help to contribute solving those challenges? That's what business education based on the Sustainable Development Goals can do. Well, the question is, why not more? The process was really a fantastic process since 2012 to involve as many voices as possible. So apart from the UN's 193 member states, literally millions of people, companies, NGOs, and academic stakeholders were asked to contribute to come up with a framework of what the main challenges of today's day and age are. And the result are only 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So I believe it is a fair assessment and actually a quite limited number when you could imagine that millions of people actually contributed to making this the framework for the UN, its member states and stakeholders, very important also business, to achieve by 2030. I think when it comes to business schools, the easiest argument is to say, look at what companies and also what the financial markets are doing. I can give you just a few key points. The PRIME initiative that I'm working for was launched by the UN Global Compact, which is a network of over 9,000 companies that had made a commitment to sustainable development. So there are 9,000 companies and growing, which are demanding this is the new trend in business. Secondly, the financial sector. Financial markets are also beginning to integrate long-term thinking into their analysis. ESG, environmental, social, and governance issues play an increasingly important role for financial analysis. And so through the financial sector and the private sector itself, we see an increasing demand for sustainable development practices, and that needs to be translated into the curriculum of business schools. I'm certain that this will be a trend to stay, even though we are in a very volatile time. But these are the two key points that I think the increased demand by the private sector will prove us right that sustainable development needs to be integrated into business school curricula. First of all, one can look at the existing offerings. So we're talking oftentimes here in the context of EMBA, of the MBA program. And oftentimes MBAs are structured along functional lines. So a first assessment would be to see in your functional courses, marketing, finance, strategy, how much of the material is already sustainability related, and how can you increase that? Can you, for example, use a case that is related to sustainability? That's number one. Secondly, it is about specialized master programs, specialized offerings. We have heard about green energy as a huge booming sector. Why not offer a master in green energy? Thirdly, it is more holistically to really rethink the way the business school is operating and offering all of its offerings. So not just the MBA or the master level programs, but also undergrad and executive education. We see an increased demand by the market, and we think smart and forward-looking business schools are getting on that train and beginning to look very holistically at all of their offerings in light of the sustainable development paradigm. Well, of course, the challenges which are outlined by the sustainable development are global, but they have their footprint in local and national or regional markets. So climate change is, of course, a global challenge that can't be solved just by one country. But when it comes to poverty reduction or reducing poverty to zero, which is SDG number 1, of course, that plays out in a more local context. So depending on which of the sustainable development challenges you would look at, you would have to find an answer which is either at the global, at the local, or at the regional level. So depending on really which focus you have, you need to take your approach in that direction. I certainly would like to invite everybody to check out the PRME.org website, which is a central repository, and we have lots of links to resources which we either have developed together with business schools and our steering committee partners, AMBA included, or we look to and we point to partner resources. There's much in this space, and we are certainly also always happy to point to existing resources of partners and other groups that have developed material which is very relevant. So check out our website or our social media channels through which we make these resources available.